and dry fire.
Oh, it's the best. All right, guys. Welcome to the Practical Pistol Show. My name's Ben. We're here to answer shooting questions. We got Mr. Nick,
Hey guys.
and we finally got a guy on West Coast time. I'm gonna call you Kimmy. Is that okay? Hansik Kim.
Sure.
Really?
He's got his own little cool logo on his videos. Have you seen it?
I have. It's fucking cool.
My wife made it for me.
I need one of those. Yeah. It's awesome.
You do? Oh, what would yours be, Nick?
Oh, I don't know. I have to think of something.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I got a horse with a dick growing out of its head, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can go somewhere in between there.
Oh man. Your wife should do a new logo for us.
Yeah, I think actually I told her about happy cakes and she was like, yeah, I should do it.
Do like a stack of pancakes or something. I don't know.
Stack of pancakes.
I don't
She'll
know.
make.
She'll do a good job.
Mean.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to the questions, guys. The first one, we're going to do the reverse order of what you have in the group chat, by the way. Just because this first one's a fucking doozy. This guy's got a bunch of background in here. B-class shooter, shooting for 2.5 years, just got serious in November. He's dry firing 5-6 days a week, 20-30 minutes at a time. Live fires once a week. He took a class from me, has all the books. Okay. So, that's about how involved he is in the sport. So he's pretty serious. There's a lot of shit in here. So let me just cut to the quick on his question. I don't particularly enjoy dry fire training. It's good once I start, but getting going is tedious. Can't imagine practicing for an hour. 30 minutes is about my attention span limit. However, I really enjoy competing, and sucking is way worse than the boredom of dry fire. And therefore, I practice so I can be competitive. My question is, for the typical shooter, how far will various amounts of practice get a person? What is a realistic amount of training to get to various levels of results? I have heard it said, I can't remember who, to train 10 or 15 minutes a day. Okay, that's easy, but how far will that get you? A class? Wins in a local club match? Steve Anderson talks about training 30 minutes a day. Shannon Smith talks about training for an hour a day. What will these levels of training get you? GM, but not competitive GM? I'd be especially curious to hear what effort Tim and Nick put in. Huh, that'd be Nick. And we've got Kimmy here he works way harder than Tim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck Tim. He doesn't do shit. Actually, Tim works pretty hard at this. They have a regular full-time job and kids. Well, Hansik, you don't have a full-time job or kids, but you do have schooling, which I imagine you take semi-seriously.
I'm doing engineering full-time student, and I have a wife. No kids yet.
Yet? Is that
Not
planned?
yet.
When is that happening?
About 8
My
months, I
wife?
guess.
My wife is pretty young, so I would say maybe another 7-8 years.
Oh, I don't know. These things have a way of sneaking up on you. Anyway, what part does the panel think natural ability plays? I suspect it's minimal. Maybe at first it's helpful, but it won't get you very far with lots of practice. I'm under no illusions that I'll ever be in the super squad at nationals, but sure would like to be competitive at state level 2 events and make GM within 2 years. But I don't know if 30 minutes a day is realistic for that kind of result. Maybe I need to practice for an hour, split into 30-minute morning and evening session. That would suck. Thanks. Wow. Nick, I'm sure you have a strong reaction for this question because we talked about it in the pre-show.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of stuff.
He's asking a lot, but basically he's telling you how hard he works, what he does, what he's willing to do, and he wants to know like what result that's going to have.
Yeah, so we don't like to talk about this much, but there is a portion of this that I will grudgingly kind of say comes down to natural talent. I mean, there are certain physiological things that some people have that others don't. So the amount of effort you put in may get you a little different result than it does for somebody else. So one example of that is I could play basketball my entire life and practice all day long every day. I'm never going to be better at basketball than LeBron James. All right, it's not going to happen. that's partially due to a large physical differential, and that's not as much a factor in our sport. But there's still like hidden little things that I'll say will come down to natural talent. But I would say on average, if you're doing 30 minutes a day, a good solid dry fire, I mean, unless you have like serious physical limitations, in my opinion, that's enough to develop a skill set that will make you a GM. If you shoot a lot of classifiers and whatnot, eventually, I think you'll get there. If you're putting in 30 minutes a day of good solid training, I think that's enough for most people.
Okay.
And you got a live fire too.
So this guy can achieve his goals with the amount of work he's putting in.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, if you're, keep in mind to make GM, most people are going to do it with classifiers.
Of course,
and,
yes.
There's really the biggest two skills you really have to do to score well on most classifiers is draw and reload fast. And if you can do that, chances are eventually you're going to get there. I think if you shoot enough, just the law of averages, eventually I think you'll get there. If you're committed to 30 minutes a day of no bullshit, good solid practice.
All right, Kimmy, what do you think?
So I agree with Nick, the part you said committing 30 minutes or whatever. I think whoever you are, if you want to be good at something, I think two things are pretty important: motivation and determination. And I think if you have both motivation and determination, your training shouldn't be really boring, because if you are motivated every single day, you're anticipating your training and all that. So for me, definitely there was a part in my shooting career that I was bored and I didn't want to do more than 15 minutes, or even I didn't want to set up a dry fire target at all. But I figured out if I motivate myself all the time, then I want to train. And 30 minutes training, I want to do more than that. If I do 1 hour training, I feel like, I want to do another 1 hour session in the evening, something like that. And how I personally motivate myself is by watching a lot of videos. Nowadays, video, YouTube, all that, you can get internet sources, or reading Ben's book.
What is this internet you speak of?
YouTube?
Well, we're on the internet right now. Holy shit.
Yeah. So I have, 400 gigabytes of shooting videos on my hard drive. And I edit videos and world champions and national champions, everybody. I have files of different names, all that. So I watch them and I compare it to myself and I get motivated. That way, my training isn't boring. And I think it also can relate to what you're doing in your training too. If you're really doing boring thing, let's say drawing just single draw all the time for your 15 minutes, I'm gonna get bored. And I got bored on my first year of dry fire, and then I challenged myself to change my dry fire routine, or I didn't make routine too. I mixed up everything. Right now, my dry fire training is somewhat different every single time, even though I may have a theme that day and next week over and over. The drills that I'm doing is always different. And I think changing up your drills is also helpful for your training.
So Juan, what I'm hearing from you, you're not really focusing so much on how much training this guy does. It's not about numbers. It's about how much he cares.
True.
Right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, really, that's the best place to take it for me, because having this discussion, it's like, this guy says, well, I could never get to the super squad. All right, but I know guys on the super squad that, maybe it takes them 10 years, but there are guys that live fire once a week and dry fire every day for a while. And, 7, 8 years later, they do find themselves on the super squad. Those guys exist that more get motivated and work at it consistently over time. And there's other personalities that I know, guys that practice more than that. I know a few retired guys that go and shoot every day, something like that. because they like it, and their practice, I don't want to say they're not motivated, but they don't, like, they want to go out there and shoot and it's something to do, but I don't ever really see substantial improvement from those dudes. They're not like trying new stuff every day. They just kind of go out there and do what they already know how to do, and and that's it. And from a numbers perspective, their training looks good because they put in a lot of time, but they don't put in that effort and energy. They're not really trying to get better. So I think you're going to see a lot of variability in this sort of stuff. But what I will say, you can say pretty firmly that guys who practice that regular schedule, they're doing the dry fire every day and live fire a little bit, once, twice a week, whatever. I mean, that's not a little bit, that's a lot. But guys doing that, they're going to be the top 10, 15, 20% of their club within a very short time. Is that fair, guys? Because how many guys at a club even put in any effort? Not many.
You're probably, if you're putting in that kind of effort, you're probably already top 10% of your local club. I mean,
yes.
Depending on the club, but yeah.
So that's going to happen very quickly. And then different people require sort of different amounts of training. They learn at different paces. They have different backgrounds. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you guys did before this, but I mean,
yeah, one thing that kind of stands out to me in a lot of these questions, and especially it's guys, and honestly, I don't remember if this guy said all this because it's a really long question, but
he put a lot of bullshit in there.
A lot of times we get guys are like, well, I've been doing this X number of years, or I want to move up from like B to A this year, or something like that. It's like if you want to improve quickly, I don't think your thinking can be that limited. So like if your goal is to be GM, there are sources of information out there, and I think one of Ben's books actually directly states this, but he's like, here is a drill, here is a GM time. That's the goal. It's not the goal next year. It's not the goal in 6 months. That's the goal right now.
Well,
so don't settle for less in your training right now. I mean, work to reach that as quickly as possible, and it's not going to take years to learn discrete skills like that.
Yes, I can also tell you that's actually the way, like my fundamentals class, especially now, that I've like reformatted it to fit with Dry Fire Reloaded really well. Kim, you're working on that book, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I have all these little pieces of shooting, like target transitions and pulling the trigger straight and fast. So like, sort of shooting at speed with some accuracy and drawing the gun. And I've, whatever. I have all these different things. And even guys in a class setting, a fundamentals class, if you just take one little piece of shooting, my demand is going to be like, do this at GM level. It could be pulling the trigger straight and fast at a pace that would be cool for a GM, or just how fast you grab the gun when you hear the start beep. Like all of that stuff is like, no, give me GM on this little piece right now. There's not some like intermediary goal for those little things. Does that make sense, Nick?
Yeah.
It's like,
absolutely.
give me GM right now. The really hard part is being advanced at a lot of things as you string a bunch of things together. So drawing and target transitioning and reloading and doing all of that really fast, consistently at the same time is the hard part. But it's like the little pieces should be really developed right away. I mean, as far as the numbers.
And another thing is like, you don't even, to make GM, to get a GM card, you don't even have to put it together for a full match or even a full stage. You just have to shoot the shortest stage in the match well. A few times.
And it could be it could be one that doesn't even have a reload in it or anything. You just like whip the gun out and blah 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 blah. Like, okay.
Right.
I mean, hit it or don't. Yeah,
and this person asked about like the magic number of the training, like 10 minutes or 30 minutes kind of thing. And I personally think even if you are doing, let's say 2 hours, person A had research about shooting or training for, let's say, hours, 2 hours, 3 hours of research, and then do 1 hour of practice. It's different than the person who did 30 minutes of research and doing practice 1 hour. So the efficiency of the practice is definitely different. So I would definitely
yes. It could be research.
People.
It could be visualization.
Mm-hmm.
You could be sitting there visualizing some different technique that you want to try, and it doesn't need to be very formalized. You could be saying like, hey, I saw this guy do this thing and I want to learn how to do that. And you try it a little bit in dry fire. And then after you're done, you're running it over and over and over again in your head,
Yeah.
visualizing that technique or that thing that you're trying to learn. And that is much different than I wore my gun for 15 minutes. I wasn't really thinking about it while I was doing it. And I put
Yeah.
my gun down. I wasn't thinking about it then either. And, I went through the motions, but I didn't put any real effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all different things. But as a theme, I would say working at it every day, you're going to get better. You're going to get better. How much better, how fast, there's a lot of variables. It's hard to say. It really is. But I don't think you have people who train seriously have no business in C class, and they shouldn't be in B class for long either. It'd be my feeling. Yeah. All right.
I started as a C class.
Well, that
It
didn't
took
last
me-
long, did it?
No, just a month or two, and then I became B.
Yeah. So there it is.
Yeah, it took me 5 years of IDPA just to get to B class, man.
No, but it didn't, because you're actually, Nick, I like to tell people about you because you're one of the very few dudes that I know that was truly casual for a while, then flipped a
Yeah.
switch and became truly like super squad level. And that's I don't know anyone else like that actually. I know plenty of guys that have gone the other way that have been super squad level and flipped a switch and quit giving a shit. I know those guys, but
Give it time.
yeah.
No, I'm actually very motivated this year.
Well,
So,
you've been looking good. You're keeping the bod tight. I like it.
Yeah, I'm down about 20 pounds so far.
Jesus Christ. You're going to have to fight the chicks off with a stick. Anyway,
Yeah, I feel good moving around, man. I like it. I really
you look
do.
good too, if you don't mind me saying. Anyway,
Thank you, sir.
I'm a B class shooter. Maybe moving to A this year. Oh, wait, this is the wrong. Didn't I just do this one? Oh, no, I didn't. It seems similar. I'm training live fire at least once a week, 300 rounds, dry fire at least 3 times a week for 15 minutes. At my local range, we don't have a plate rack. So my question is, what is the benefit of training with a plate rack? God damn it. We already did this question, guys.
We did.
Well, not we, but now that I
Somebody.
see this question, we've done it on a prior show, and I gotta have to substitute in a different question because, you know what? We need it. Here, let's find a good one. This is perfect. This is something we can wax philosophical about this. I'm a long-time bullseye shooter making the transition to USPSA production. If you could redo your development as a USPSA shooter, what would you do differently? Also, what should a bullseye shooter focus more on or focus less on when learning USPSA?
Very nice question.
It's very interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Nick.
So I've never shot bullseye, but I shot IDPA, which is kind of the next closest thing, right?
Oh,
so
don't be so
it
hard
was-
on yourself, Nick.
No, but the stuff I had to develop, it will be the same things that you have to develop. I mean, it's just everything you do in a USPSA match that cuts down on time is what you're going to have to develop. So that's a laundry list of stuff. So you're going to have to draw fast, reload fast, get in and out of positions quickly and efficiently, transitions, just everything that is involved with is cutting your time down.
Well, what
is
would you
gonna be-
do
That's
differently?
something that you have to address. If I had my shooting life to do differently, I would, I wish I'd gone back and got competitive when I was, 22 instead of many years after that. So that'd be the biggest thing. Yeah, I mean, I just like we just said, I didn't take it seriously from a competitive aspect for quite some time, and I missed those years because they were, good years in your early 20s when you're, physically at your peak most likely, and so I regret that I wasn't competitive during that time frame. But obviously, there's nothing that can be done about that now. So it sounds like this guy wants to get serious. So if your goal is to get good at USPSA, then And you know, if you're really motivated to do that, then just make sure you're doing everything you can, you know, to get better. You know, I talked about natural talent a little earlier, but you know, the flip side and the much bigger factor, you know, having to do with that is how hard are you willing to work? That matters so much more. And you know, what could you have done today to get better that you didn't do? And every little bit there that it adds up. So
Yeah, well, let me put it this way: how many guys that work really hard do you see like don't get anywhere? Not that many.
yeah,
But there's plenty of motherfuckers with talent that I see go nowhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Plenty. I see guys like that all the time where it's like, hey, that guy has talent, and with a little bit of work, he could really develop, but it's a matter of, are they going to do the work and the preparation? I mean, because I guess to be a real top performer, you need both, but you can do really well with no talent and just a little bit of work.
Yeah, and most people, you know, your ceiling is so much higher than you think it is when you're in, you know, deep
Yes,
wrestling.
of course.
You know, I mean, you can't imagine yourself doing some of the things that you are perfectly capable of doing.
Right. Well, that's actually
I remember that.
like the hardest part of a lot of human endeavor is really once you know that a thing is possible, it becomes much easier to do. I mean, that's the biggest part of it is like learning that something is possible. If you go watch footage from matches in the 80s, 90s, guys today look. I mean, the stages are different, of course, but there's guys now that come into the sport and with 2 years of training, they will look the same moving through a stage as the top guys from back then. Because they just
Yeah,
the
the
level
bar's
of the
higher
game.
today too, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, guys look at this and it's like, no, a 1 second draw at 7 yards is like not a big fucking deal. That doesn't matter. Or, shooting at a certain pace when you see, some group of targets or something. It's like there's lots of guys that are fast and that can shoot really quickly. I mean, the bar's in a different place because people look at it and you're like, no, that thing's not hard. It's easy. Anybody can do that. And that's the figuring out that something is possible is kind of like you're halfway to doing it once you know you can do it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One more specific point about this guy's question. One of the hardest things for me to develop when I came from IDPA was learning, that I could accept a less precise sight picture more quickly in USPSA. Not only could I, but I would have to in order to really get the right pace of shooting down. Like when I started, I shot like 3As on a whole lot of targets, and in IDPA doesn't really hurt you that much. In USPSA it does. So, as a bullseye shooter, you may be even more prone subconsciously to do something like that. And, it's something that you have to develop kind of subconsciously to understand that, if you shot a C, you probably aren't going to help yourself by taking a makeup shot. So get it right the first time. But if you don't, if it wasn't a really bad shot, you probably just need to let it go. That's something that took me some time to develop.
Kimmy, you got anything?
Yeah, I actually asked this question to myself, like beginning of this year, and I know exactly what I would do it again. So,
Well, hold on.
Hmm?
Before you start beating yourself up, how long did it take you to make GM?
Well, I'm actually not a GM yet.
Bullshit. You're not?
No, I'm a I'm a master guy.
You've won an area match, though.
Yeah, and then I shot nationals, and the nationals percentage was like 87.8 or
That's
something.
pretty.
So
That's pretty fucking respectable.
yeah, so the same month I was supposed to be a GM, but at the same month there was nationals, and nationals just brought it down. And then I didn't shoot local matches that much. So.
The English term is nationals fucked me.
Kinda, yeah, pretty much.
Anyway.
So, so basically the answer is first figure out how to grip the gun, how much,
boring.
how hard I need to grip the gun, kind of thing. The leverage and the friction part. So how much force I need to put on, kind of thing. And I also did really neglected the indexing part. So when my gun or when I'm looking at the target, when the gun comes in, uh, sight being lined up as soon as it's arriving. And I didn't really focus that on the first year of shooting. I was just focusing on high speed ninja because I was, watching all the YouTube videos.
That's a
And then,
Japanese thing, though, right?
yeah, kinda.
Because
But
Korea doesn't have ninjas.
yeah, we're kind of connected, so ninja-ish.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So, uh, wait, something popped up. Okay, so I would definitely do that. Grip and then indexing, and then knowing what I can do in dry fire and live fire. And I didn't know that I could do literally everything in dry fire except recoil management. And I wasted so much ammo by doing that. So if I do it again, I would go do live fire first and then figure out what the grip is and then do everything else in dry fire and save some bullets and save some time. And also, I did a lot of running around and time wasting drills in live fire. And I don't think there is so much meaning running around in live fire because I can do that in dry fire. So that would save a lot of time.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. Yeah.
Well.
Oh, one thing I want to tell. So when I took Ben's class, I asked Ben to grip the gun, but my strong hand was gripping the gun, and his support hand was gripping my strong hand, obviously.
Yes.
And then I was so surprised how hard he was gripping the gun, and then that was a big click. So everybody should take Ben's class and ask him to grip your gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you really want to get your ass gripped off, have Vogel do that. That dude's a fucking monster.
Mhm.
Yes, that's something I put a lot of emphasis on now, like how to grip the gun and all that. What as far as what I would do differently, like the newer drills that I have, and a lot of this stuff is not developed by me, but as I've come to understand it, and like since I teach a large number of people, I see what works for them and what works for me. Like the newer drills, like in the last 2 or 3 years, that shit is so efficient now. As far as how quickly people can learn and become proficient versus what a lot of people figured out in the past. I mean, the kind of the old paradigm. What I started doing was learn to go fast and then figure out what you need to slow down for, or you do the inverse of that, which is learn to hit everything and then speed up where you think you can speed up. But now it's more like learning different processes right from the start. So up close range, learning how to hold the gun and learning how to run the shit out of the gun on close range targets, looking right through the gun, and then doing longer range shooting, learning how to hold the gun and learning how to run the trigger straight, and then making sure the sight comes back down on the target and learning to shoot very accurately at longer stuff, and then just learning what focuses to apply at different target difficulties that makes you super efficient. It's a way easier way to learn it. Does that make sense, guys? Instead of go fast, then figure out what you need to slow down for or something. It's like it's much more precise now as far as learning just different focal points for different difficulty targets, and that's where you save a lot of time. I'm not getting much of a reaction here. I do better.
It sounds like you're just kind of learning everything at one time rather than going a sequential step of.
And it's more. It's not so much. It's not like by feel or by like figuring it out. It's more, no, do this process. At 7 yards, look through the gun. You'll see the sight's blurry, target's clear. Crush the gun with your non-dominant hand and run the trigger as hard as you can. And immediately, you're shooting, 0.2 of a second between shots, going like blah, 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 and holding them right in the target. And any retard can do that if it's explained to them that way and they're forced to do it. Versus, well, learn to hit everything and then speed up where you can speed up, and then you kind of learn it by feel and just kind of have to figure it out. And then you watch other guys doing it, like, well, they seem faster, and then you try to shoot a little more. It's not really, it wasn't like a clear process explained to people. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I exactly do. The first one you explained.
Well, of course, yeah, that's what you do. And I was like, now it's do this. This is the drill. This is the time it should be. If you do everything right, it's going to be like this. These are the things that, like, if you crush down with your firing hand too much, you get trigger freeze. You can't run the trigger hard, so don't do that. And like now, the process is so clear to people, and the drills are so specific, and the information is out there that if you read through it and understand it, you can get good really fast. When I started, there were drills and there were times, but the explanations were not usually very clear. Does that make sense? It's kind of like I know that I'm supposed to be able to do this thing, and you need to have the personality type this. Like, okay, like this is the time, this is the points, make it fucking happen. You know, what other? For me, it was classifiers. Like I'd go through the classifier book and just like, this is the points, this is the time, let's make it happen because I know it's possible. But aside from that, you know, you got to kind of figure the rest out. And then there's looking at the target. There's target focus. There's sight focus, and at that time, the state of the art was Enos's book, which has all the information in it, but about 50% of people find it unreadable and obtuse, and 50% of people think it's the best thing ever put on paper. You know what I mean? So it's really polarizing. It works for some people, doesn't work for others. And if you're in the camp that doesn't understand that shit or it just doesn't click with you, then you're fucked. That sort of thing.
People who likes it understands the book, I think.
Or at least they believe they understand the book.
Yeah. And I personally think all the listeners right now has to go back to the beginning of the question and re-listen what Ben said, and then have some brainstorming, and then try to do. So basically, I listened to Ben's podcast beginning to yesterday, every single episode, at least a dozen times each episode, I believe, or more.
That's
I definitely
weird.
think it's more.
That's
a
really
big time
weird.
commitment.
Yeah. to get myself on the loop and understand what I need to do. And that's the power you need to have if you want to only practice 30 minutes but have really efficient training time. Then you need to know a lot of you need to have knowledge.
Yes, I
What
mean,
you want to work on. Yeah.
yeah, but I would say now like the path is, I wouldn't say it's easier. USPSA is harder now than it was when I started because the information is accessible and there's a lot of guys in it that are really competitive. So the competitive field is tougher, but the path to skill is maybe easier. If that, you know, again, if that makes sense. We have better bullets, better reloading presses. Like logistically, the stuff's gotten a lot easier. The guns are better than they used to be, more reliable, easier to get. But as far as the field, that's the part that's gotten tougher. If I were a bullseye shooter coming into USPSA, what I would be very interested in addition to what Nick said, like speeding up the non-shooting stuff, it's like, yeah, you have to run your ass off between positions. You have to draw fast and reload fast. And I'm sure the guy knows that, and that's all really clear. But learning different focal points as far as aiming and learning how fast he can really shoot, that would be the stuff that you'd want to really focus on developing. And I would say, what I tell people, I get bullseye type people sometimes, and it's like, hey, you've got the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing to do, is just to hit little things far away. And guys that are good at that are good at the hardest thing there is to be good at. And it's something that a lot of USPSA guys never really get that good at it because it's not that much fun. But if somebody's already developed that, they can go really far, really fast in the sport, I think. If that makes sense. So that's a good background to have.
Yeah. I was actually a bullseye shooter before I shot USPSA first time. So first time I shot a handgun was when I was 24, but I started USPSA when I was 26. But in 2 years' time, I probably shot, I don't know, 3,000 rounds, maybe less. But in the meantime, I was shooting pin and reset and like all the YouTube hero. I was just following them. My grip was all messed up. I was really a weaver guy. And my weaver stance was really good. My left ankle was pretty 90 degrees, not ankle, elbow. So I was having a little bit of a problem when I first came to USPSA, but I didn't have problem shooting a good group. So what I had to figure out was different trigger control, the trigger control that suits rapid fire, and a good grip, of course. So
Yeah.
trigger control and good grip, basically shooting fundamentals for rapid fire.
Well, guys, I think we nailed that question. I really do. All right, listeners, if you have any questions you'd like the answer to, go to benstoeger.com. Get in touch with me. We'd love to talk about your question. I'll even make guys be nice to you. If you ask a really stupid one, they'll have to be nice.
That's just over the line.
Is it? What? All right. So, guys, go to the website. Send me your question. You're going to love it. It's going to be great.